Now, to add more perspective in terms of what's actually unfolding in Australia, we're joined in by Dr. Malcolm Davis, who's a senior analyst at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Now, Dr. Davis, let me begin by asking you, what we are witnessing this year round appears to be almost unprecedented in terms of bushfires in Australia. Was the government taken off guard, and were there not adequate enough measures that were put in place foreseeing that a condition of this nature could play out?
Look, I think it is unprecedented. We should have realised that this was going to happen. The predictions were that as a result of climate change, Australia was going to face longer, hotter and drier summers where the bushfire risk would dramatically increase. And of course, come October of last year, that's exactly what we got. We started getting these massive fires that were so big that they simply couldn't be put out, the so-called mega fires. And one of them was bigger than Sydney. Mm-hmm. And so I think that what we needed to do was to have a lot more preparation ahead of that period, recognising that threat, including leveraging the Australian Defence Forces to be able to contribute to fighting the fires and protecting civilians and supporting firefighters directly. They should have been in place a lot sooner. But the government, I think, has been caught flat-footed and has responded slowly or slower than it should have, and we're probably learning some hard lessons now as a result.
Absolutely, and also the manner in which the Australian government has in fact responded to this emergency has been criticised. Scott Morrison, in fact, was holidaying in Hawaii at a time when the fires became extremely intense. He returned back, he apologised for it. But has there been a decided shift in terms of how Australia is now coping up with the fires in the last 1 week?
Look, I think we are shifting up several gears, but we probably need to go up several gears more. And I think we recognise that this bushfire crisis is continuing. Mm-hmm. Some projections are saying it will continue through to Easter, which is in March, April. And we have a number of hard days and hard weeks yet as the temperatures continue to increase. And there's a lot of fuel there to burn and not enough resources on the ground to deal with it. So we are bringing in the military, we're bringing in overseas help from Canada and the United States. And I think we're all pulling together now as in a national emergency. Mm-hmm. But I think the lessons will be learned for this year in 2020's bushfire season going forward into the next summer period will be probably a much better prepared position as a result of what we've learnt this time around.
All right, and now for people who are watching around the world, these massive fires, bushfires, blazing through these places in Australia, give us a sense of what it's actually like. Because when the Amazon rainforest was on fire, initially people thought that this was some kind of a natural calamity. But later it was found that there were policy issues that were related to it, and some people were actually setting those Amazon rainforests on fire deliberately. But what is happening in Australia? Is this a natural calamity, or is there a problem with policy of the government?
Look, I'm in Canberra, so I'm nowhere near the fire front, as they call it. But having said that, in Canberra, we are getting thick, acrid smoke pouring into the city to the point whereby last night, New Year's Eve celebrations were cancelled across the city. Mm-hmm. You couldn't breathe. But if you go closer to the fire fronts in New South Wales, South Coast, and now in Victoria, it is apocalyptic. It is sort of like end of the world stuff in the sense that the skies turn blood red. People are running into the sea to avoid being threatened by the flames. Whole towns are going, and it is a desperate situation. So I think that what we are seeing is primarily a result of climate change. It is primarily a result that there is still too much fuel there to burn. But we're also seeing, I think, a shortfall in policy formulation that now needs to be put into higher gear to prepare for future fire seasons, because climate change means that Australia is going to get longer, hotter, drier summers from here on in. This is not going to go away, and other countries face the same challenge. And so we have to recognise that part of the outcome of climate change is the planet is heating up, and these sorts of threats are going to become more and more of a challenge. So we need to respond to that.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Davis, for joining us and getting us all those insights. And this is a story that we are continuing to track very closely indeed.